Welcome to the MarTech.org podcast.
I'm here with Canberk Beker from HockeyStack, which is a very popular company. It's got a lot of buzz around HockeyStack, and Canberk's going to talk a little bit about HockeyStack. But more importantly, we're going to talk about an exercise that he and the HockeyStack team did to measure the effectiveness of demand generation versus lead generation. There's a piece on the HockeyStack blog. They call it the final verdict, because which of these two strategies is measurable and most effective has been a matter of great debate, but really hard to measure until recently. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. But Canberk, thanks for being here and taking the time to talk. Let's start with demand generation. It's a term that gets used and misused quite a bit in B2B marketing. It's often used interchangeably with lead gen. We're talking about what some people refer to as the new demand gen, but walk us through demand gen as it's going to apply to our discussion here today.
Sure. Hi, Mike. Thank you for having me. And yeah, as you said, demand gen is a bit juicy topic. And the problem with marketing at this point, like there's so many buzzwords. And like there's old demand gen, new demand gen, demand gen 2.0. But for me, demand gen, it should be a really simple thing. Like if you are spending money on your brand, if you are focusing more on brand than generating MQLs directly from ebooks, it means that you are generating demand. Like for me, if you are spending more money for your brand campaigns, and if you are just using your remarketing budget to capture the demand you created, like if your what you want to achieve is to educate the user. Like if you want to educate your user, if you want to educate your target addressable market, it is demand gen. On the other hand, lead gen for me is that without educating the market, it is generating last touch conversions. Like you don't really want to educate the market. You don't really focus on your brand, but you rather focus on last touch conversions.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about HockeyStack. Like I said, there's a lot of buzz around HockeyStack. It's been a pretty popular name, especially among the demand gen marketers. Got a lot of buzz on LinkedIn. Take a few minutes to explain what HockeyStack does and how it does it.
All right. So HockeyStack started as a marketing attribution platform. And from marketing attribution platform, now it has become an end-to-end attribution and analytics platform, meaning that last year, the platform was able to track the marketing touchpoints, and it was able to track from the first impression on LinkedIn until the revenue in your CRM. But now, actually, we got even better, and now what we can do is to track not only the entire marketing journey, but the entire sales journey. So like if an SDR has an outbound call, we can also track that. If there's an outbound email, we can track that. If you are sending gifts, if you are if you are having events, organizing events, getting lists from trade shows, you can also upload that data to HockeyStack, and we can actually show you the end-to-end journey. So like I'm trying to distance the company from the market attribution now, because it is more than attribution. It is like an entire end-to-end revenue attribution. I don't know, like GTM attribution, but we can literally now track everything.
All right. So lead gen is very entrenched in a lot of B2B organizations because in part, or maybe entirely because, it's pretty measurable to a certain extent. You can count MQLs, you can count SQLs, you can even count revenue, even though the attribution has always been kind of a challenge. And, people hate change. So there's been this tug of war going on for a few years now, playing out, especially on LinkedIn for sure, on a daily basis. So walk us through the exercise that you conducted to compare lead gen versus demand gen and to try and come to, as you guys wrote, a final verdict on which is most effective.
So the good thing about HockeyStack is now we have more than 100 customers, like close to 200 customers. And all of these customers are B2B SaaS companies. And once they start using HockeyStack, they need to connect all of their ad platforms, they need to connect all of their CRMs, meaning that we can actually get the entire data, and we can de-anonymize the data really easily. So we started to release these labs reports in the beginning of this year, and the one that we released was the 14th one in this year. And I actually don't know why I had to wait so long for it, because before like I was working at Cognizant, and Cognizant was one of the first companies that was doing demand gen at scale. And even at Cognizant, like when I joined Cognizant, they were already doing demand gen, but the way they measure demand gen was more like spending money on brand. And if we are seeing an improvement in the organic MQLs, it means that demand gen is working, because there was no way to measure that. Like some people were saying that, okay, you need to have self-report attribution to your form. So once people submit the form, they will tell you how did you hear about them. However, it still shows one side of the picture, because people tend to remember the last part of their journey. Like you might be seeing my ad on YouTube, you might be seeing my ad, or you might be seeing my logo in a trade show. Like you only remember the part of the journey. So it is still broken. It was still broken. And at Cognizant, then I saw HockeyStack. I was like, okay, can you do that? And they said, yes, we can do that. And back then I got HockeyStack for Cognizant. And what they did was to match my LinkedIn impression data with my conversion data on the MQL level, SQL level, revenue level. And for the first time, we were able to see the exact impressions and exact contributions of each campaign to revenue. Even if there was no click, even if there was no engagement, we were able to see. And we were like, okay, we can see this organic lead, but apparently they have been seeing our ads for the last 2 weeks for more than 50 times. Therefore, it cannot be organic. And this report itself was a long overdue report. And this time we analyzed almost 90 B2B SaaS companies. And we tried to split those companies 50-50. But I guess I have to see the numbers, but I suppose it is like maybe 45 to 40. And when we analyzed that data, there was more than 250,000 MQLs. There were like 260 million MQLs in the data set. And there was more than 100 million ad spend. And we analyzed 500 million pipeline and 70 million revenue from Q4 2023 and Q1 2024. And like what we found out was not surprising. It was the stuff that I was already seeing at HockeyStack, at Cognizant. But this time, I wanted to give it a stronger name, like a final verdict, because it was the most extensive research. Like refiners, they were releasing researches like that, but they had like, I don't know, 30 clients, maybe 40 clients at most. Other companies, they were publishing about their own numbers, but it was only about one company or two companies. But this was the most expensive. This is the most extensive research that has been done. And in terms of methodology, obviously, as you said, there's so many definitions of demand generation, and none of the definitions will make everyone happy. So we had to choose the definition that would make the most sense to us. And for us, it was if a company doesn't spend any budget for any gated campaign, such as ebook, white paper, or any gated content campaign, we classified them as companies that do demand generation. Zero spent for any kind of gated content. And we classified companies under lead generation if they spend more than 50% of their budget for gated content. And there are also some companies that were spending like 20% of their budget, 40% of the budget. We simply excluded them just for the sake of simplicity, because we want to compare the true lead generation motion to true demand generation motion. So we did not include any company that had lower than 50% spent for lead generation. Then the other interesting thing was how we classified the MQLs. For demand generation MQLs, for demand companies doing demand generation, MQLs from companies doing demand generation, because I got a lot of comments about that. Apparently it was not very clear. So I'm going to be very clear in this podcast. MQLs coming from companies doing demand generation. And these MQLs include any kind of high intent form submissions. So demo, pricing page, contact sales, any kind of high intent form submission. on the lead generation side, those MQLs include all of the gated MQLs plus the demo form submissions, high intent form submissions. And the reason we did this sort of a distinction on the lead generation side was that, okay, companies might be focusing more on lead generation, but this doesn't mean that these companies are not generating any MQLs from their demo forms or their contact forms. They are still generating those MQLs. So what we want to understand was the average of these companies doing lead generation, so that we could actually compare apples and apples. And after we had those distinctions, which took the most time to be fair, we started analyzing the data. And on the demand generation side, we analyzed around 60 million, just about 60 million at spent. And on the lead generation side, the spent was around 45 million. And obviously, when we first look at it, what we see is that on the lead generation side, the number of MQLs is higher and the cost per MQL is lower. Like, I think the number of MQLs was like 50% higher, and the cost per lead on the lead generation side was almost 2x lower. So when you first look at it, you say, oh my God, lead generation is working. You can generate more leads and you can generate more leads for a cheaper price. Like, it is the ultimate dream of every CRO or every CFO over there.
Is that, I want to jump in with a quick question here, because I feel like maybe if you go back a few years, that's sort of as far as people got with their analysis. And that is why, lead gen was so popular and became so
exactly.
You get to this point and you go, look, it works. But now.
And funny thing about it, actually, like 5 years ago, I was working with this CMO, and I was building the marketing budget and marketing forecasting for the next year. And it was just before the investment round. So I had to create this forecasting for the next 2 years. And we were doing lead gen. So like, I had to use the cost per lead, and I had to make the calculations with the cost per lead that we had back then. And obviously, there was also this thing. I knew that the cost per lead would never stay the same. Like, as the demand was increasing in the market, as new companies going into the market, the price was going to go up. So like, I said, there would be an increase maybe in every quarter, like 5%. And then she said something that I haven't heard before. She said, okay, but we are going to be investing in events. We are going to be sponsoring podcasts. Even though we cannot prove that in the spreadsheet, we need to take into consideration the impact of brand. This impact of brand will decrease the cost per lead, will increase our brand awareness, and it will bring more form submissions. Like, it was a theory, but obviously we had no way to prove that. So we basically added, okay, there will be a 5% decrease in the cost per lead, because that's what our gut tells us. So as you said, it was as far as we could go. And that was it. But now we could actually go down even further, and we could actually look at the pipeline data. We could actually see the entire revenue funnel. And obviously, the most exciting and most juicy thing, to be fair, is the conversion rate from MQL to SQL. And obviously, there's a lot of definitions about MQL, a lot of definitions of SQL, a lot of definition about deal sizes. I put a methodology in the beginning of the report, but for SQL, for us, it basically means once the salespeople put an amount into that deal. So like, if they put an average ACV to a deal, we take it as a SQL. And when we look at the MQL to SQL conversion rate between demand generation and lead generation MQLs, we could exactly and right away see the difference. The MQL to SQL conversion rate for demand gen side, it was above 20%. While for lead gen, it was lower than 5%. Like, it was more than 4x higher than lead generation, which was the first signal for us. Okay, we are on the right track. We are now seeing what we are already seeing at HockeyStack, what I already saw at Cognizant. Even at scale, now we can prove that. But obviously, we didn't want to stop there, and we also want to see, okay, the conversion rate might be lower, but what about ACV? Because my assumption was that ACV wouldn't change that much. Like, okay, a lower percent of the MQLs might end up becoming SQLs, but if SQLs become SQLs, the ACV should stay the same. Like, all of the opportunities should be similar. And yeah, like basically we have seen like maybe 10%, 5% difference between demand gen to lead gen ACV on the deal side. However, it was not a huge difference. So like even it is a lead gen opportunity or a demand gen opportunity, the ACV is the same, which was expected.
Why do you think demand gen works compared to lead gen?
Because in demand gen, you are not pressuring anyone. Like they come to you when they are ready. While in lead gen, you don't give them a choice. Like I don't remember the last time I downloaded an ebook because I know that I will get harassed. Even though I find an ebook topic, ebook subject interesting, I'm like, I know that as soon as I download this, someone will be calling me, someone will be emailing me, and I don't want to do that. So like it is more like lead gen is for numbers, but demand gen is more like guiding the audience throughout the journey. Like there's no pressure and you don't do anything until they come and they raise their hand. That's why I believe demand gen is more successful.
Okay. And it sounds like some of the companies, I want to get your take on that. I mean, some companies obviously are all in on the demand gen strategy. There are companies that have been doing lead gen for years. There's still millions and millions of dollars spent on lead gen, so it's obviously still being done, and people are happy with the performance.
Mm-hmm.
Are there companies doing a little bit of both? Like you talked about how you classified the companies. Are there people who are kind of dipping into both bowls and saying, maybe we don't want to pick a side. We're just trying to get in front of people that we think would be interested in our product?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, okay, for me, I think demand gen is the answer, but I'm saying this because I haven't worked in a company that had more than 1,000 employees. So like, I know that we will never be able to change the way Microsoft does marketing. We will never be able to change the way Oracle does marketing. Like lead gen will always stay here. These enterprise companies will never do demand gen. They will always be doing lead gen. And there are some companies, and there will be some companies who will be focusing on both of the parts. And I think it is about what the marketing team is measured on. And if the marketing team is measured on pipeline, it gives the team more creativity to try and test out different stuff. But if the team is measured by the number of MQLs, obviously they would be focusing on lead generation because it is easier. Like if my CRO would come to me and told me that now I'm measured by the number of MQLs, I'd be like, okay, now I'm going to be publishing some ebooks and we are going to be doing lead generation. So like it comes from top, but yeah, if a marketing team is measured by both number of MQLs and pipeline, like if they have, I don't know, minimum number of MQLs that they need to hit as a soft target, but also a soft pipeline target, then I think that companies could be focusing on both really easily. But like other than that, I cannot, to be fair, understand how really it is possible to do both if you are measured by only pipeline or if you are only measured by number of MQLs. Like there will when I think about it, there will be a switch period. Obviously, like if a company wants to do demand gen, they shouldn't be just change everything today and go to demand gen. Like it needs to be a gradual process. And like when I was with Cognism, it started with 10% of the budget, first with demand gen, then 20%, then 30%. So like if they are gradually changing their system, then it makes sense to have like 30%, 70% budget, 50%, 50% budget. But in the long run, I don't see them living together very well. Yeah.
Okay. So if this is the final verdict on demand gen versus lead gen, what's next for you and HockeyStack, and what are you going to be talking about next?
So we actually released, like this was our 14th report, and we start launching these reports in the beginning of the year. So like this is like 19th week of 2024, and it is the 14th report. We are trying to release one report every week, and we have the reports to release for the next 3 weeks. But yeah, I'm genuinely asking other marketers to tell me what they want to know. Like up until this point, I have literally been writing about the stuff that I genuinely was curious about. And I think like I'm in that lucky side. And yeah, I always say this because with HockeyStack, I am my own ICP. So I just write the stuff that I find interesting.
Yeah, marketing to marketers is fun, isn't it?
It's so fun. Like, it's so fun. I'm like, okay, do I like this content? I like this content. And then ship it. But yeah, now next week, we are going to be talking about PLG versus SLG, like how does free trial, interactive demos, and normal demos impact the entire sales journey. Then the other report will be about buying committee, like what ACV looks like if the buying committee is bigger, and what ACV looks like if the buying committee is smaller, and what the sales cycles look like. But if you have any other ideas, please let me know, listeners, Mike, you. Because I'm genuinely asking for other ideas because I'm running out of ideas. I'm not gonna lie.
So help John Berg's content marketing. Reach out to him on LinkedIn with your ideas, what you want to see. Canberk Beker, thanks for joining us here on the MarTech.org podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike.
Thank you for listening to the MarTech.org podcast. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at martech.org/newsletters.